There are also units that have completely failed because they simply don't have people who can cook, which is pathetic. There are also units that have gone completely through the roof. In this video, we'll look at what a German Ukraine veteran noted about MREs, meals ready to eat, Ukrainian and Russian rations, and other aspects about Ukrainian food supply and quality. The questions were provided by my Patreon subscriber supporters. Big thank you for all of you for supporting me and keeping the channels going. YouTube introduced major changes, which makes such support a necessity to continue my work. Yet, let's jump into the content. The Ukraine veteran first notes that the MREs, short for meal ready to eat, is a must-have at certain missions, yet that some people overhype them a bit. So basically about MREs, that's one thing you need when you go on missions. In other words, if you really know you're going into an area, you don't know what the time duration is, and you are cut off from normal food supply. So you either have them with you as a precaution or just to be self-sufficient for a certain short time without having to cook or look for or prepare food in any way. That's the main purpose. He adds that as a result of this, MREs are generally not particularly tasty. That doesn't mean that these things are somehow nice or cool or anything like that. They usually taste pretty awful. In culinary terms, they are definitely at the lower end. It's just a level of canned food, unseasoned. And yes, of course, it has a certain hype among people. That's simply because a lot of people think everything that's military is cool. I should add here from my knowledge that Butya knows how to cook and that he has a large quantity of spices at home and generally also likes to use fresh produce, etc. As such, he is not necessarily a gourmet, but clearly not a culturally savage like me, who eats a can of tuna with a piece of bread and some salt for dinner because I can't be bothered to cook. Anyway, about MREs, he adds that he can understand to a certain degree the fascination they exhibit to some people. And I can also somehow understand that the MREs always have a bit of a mystery box character, because you have a hodgepodge of things to eat in there that you don't necessarily see beforehand. That always has a certain appeal, of course. I can understand that. But it's still not cool to eat. It's anything but cool. And I have to say, I have a certain mixture of pity and disdain for people who celebrate these things and find them delicious. So let us move on about his opinion about Russian MREs. He noted, yes, apart from the fact that the Russian MREs have actually relatively disappeared from what feels the middle of 2023 at the latest, or only come around in special units. I've only seen once, so the thing is very conservative. He adds that the quality he saw was rather limited. The Russian MREs are just such a collection of canned goods, so very, very old school in my opinion. You can just eat them, they're also super impractical to lug around. Yes, and it's really very conservative. It's mostly Tushanka stuff and Greshka. So really a tin of meat, canned meat, and then a tin of buckwheat groats. It's also very plain, it has absolutely no comfort value. It has a certain nutritional value, but not much. That's why they have vitamin sweets in there, because otherwise you don't get the nutritional value. About the comparison between Russian and Ukrainian MREs, he noted that the comparison does not really make sense, since Ukrainians don't really have their own MREs, or at least he hasn't seen them. Ukrainian MREs aren't necessarily MREs in my opinion. They are more like tactical food packs in my opinion. They feel like they have whole dishes, so when you prepare them it really has a great convenience value. Yet the comfort and taste of the meals comes with a drawback. The thing is though, they are not 100%, I will say, MRE frontline capable. They are more like you don't do that on a mission. You do it in the area of operations because they are a bit time consuming to prepare. If possible, they need heat, but they don't have their own heating pack. Always a big minus for me. And they have a whole dish. For example, you have a bag that contains a complete soup. Yes, that's it. Which is great, but it sucks to lug around and it sucks to eat cold too. You can't necessarily compare that with American MREs, where you have all the pressed food slurry that you can eat no matter how cold or warm. And yes, that's a bit more impractical. Thus he concludes that the Ukrainian food doctrine can't be really compared. He notes, the Ukrainian ones really do have complete dishes. They are different approaches, difficult to compare directly. Neither is ideal in my opinion, but the Ukrainian one is still better. He also explains the shortcomings and strength of the Ukrainian ration system. First off, the main priority for the Ukrainians initially was to get firepower to the front. In principle, some units still have field kitchens. The problem is, because the army has grown so quickly, the whole admin branch has naturally fallen behind a bit. Precisely because all the investments and focus was naturally to bring firepower to the front. And then the entire focus was placed on procuring the weapons, necessarily. This is similar to the German troops in the Second World War, where in the logistical system the priority was given to ammunition and not winter gear. Back to Ukraine. Here the service aspect was necessarily a low priority. And this whole admin area that came a long way down the list of priorities. That was bypassed because you're still on the home turf, so you're in your own area. Some units can cater for themselves. So many units get some kind of food allowance or raw food. In other words, somehow the wholesaler put a pallet of mixed food in the courtyard. And then they cook for themselves. We did that a lot too. Above all, I did a lot. It's very good because you have the capacity yourself and you can act according to the requirements of your own unit. The famous quote from Napoleon that an army walks on its stomach seems to go far deeper. Put your notes. There are also units that have completely failed because they simply don't have people who can cook, which is pathetic. There are also units that have gone completely through the roof because they brought in some restaurants owners beforehand who simply played the cooking theme through the end and the people were just top notch. For example, I once had a lot of older men in my unit who were ambitious anglers. Some of them started fishing for trout in their deployment area and then smoked them. And somehow, every few days when they had enough together so that everyone could get something, they would have home smoked trout, for example. So there's a lot of variation and a lot of creativity, which is good. He also provides some insights into the general organization and pre-war preparations. Apart from that, some of the field kitchens that exist are really old Soviet field kitchens, which doesn't mean they are bad. After the Ukrainians got this little reality check in 2014, the Ukrainians came up with a very strong reform program and among other things also turned troop catering inside out. If you get troop rations from a regular unit, that's great. You get 3 courses, soup beforehand, main course, dessert, plus cookies, fruit, etc. somehow. You can really get your head around that. The food is really good here, really good by Central European standards. And because they have seen that, especially under the climatic conditions there, if we feed the people well, they can actually fight much better. And the motivation is naturally also linked to this. The Patreon supporter Patio Furniture asked, what was the best field ration to find you have after a rough day? So the Polish MRE is just a 24-hour ration where you have a big bag full of cool things and then you also have complete meals in it. He explains why this is the case. For example, you had a stew with kolbasa and something really tasty, so when you made it warm it really tasted like a complete dish, not some long-lasting compressed chemical gruel. And then of course they had some good gimmicks. So the cookies, they had a lot of cookies in them. Cookies are generally a bit of a substitute for bread in MREs anyway. Their cookies were good, they also had a lot of jam in them. And guava jam, for example. But no, was that guava? Still, it was guava jam. I will have to look it up again. But I think it was guava jam. But it had some pretty cool jam in it, so it was a bit like that. It really tasted like real food. It had a bit of combat food feel to it, and it was really rich. Meanwhile, I don't even know what a guava is. To summarize, Russian MREs have largely disappeared and are only used in special units. They consist mainly of canned food and are very old school. Ukrainian MREs are more like tactical food packets with complete dishes that have a high convenience value, but are time consuming to prepare and require external heat. Generally about rations in Ukraine, some units have field kitchens, others receive rations or raw food and cook for themselves. The Ukrainian army reformed its troop rations after 2014 and now provides good rations. His favorite MRE is a Polish one that included full meals with high comfort value. Thank you to Putya for answering the questions. Thank you to Andrew and my Patreon supporters for support and providing questions.